Hi, my name is Sonia Vega. I am doing my mini presentation through this video. I will not be able to attend class this Monday. I have a presentation to do to our curriculum and instruction team. Very exciting stuff. It was actually as a result of a study or an assignment that we had to do for Dr. Chase's leadership and literacy class, and we got awesome results, so we get to share our study with everybody else. I'll share with you in a little bit about that study. I just want to share a few thoughts on the four components that Dr. Chase had asked us to cover. Phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension, some of which I will talk to you about through the study that we did for Dr. Chase's class. A couple of thoughts just, phonics, yes, extremely essential. Working, I guess, my biggest question at this point is, what do I do? I teach middle school at this point, so what do I do with a struggling reader? Do I go back and try to teach them some sort of phonics awareness? Phonemic awareness, I'm sorry, or do I just move on and try to build on what they have? But I mean, can I really build comprehension without them being able to read the text that I'm giving them? Every elementary school teacher I've spoken to that teaches the lower grades, they do say that phonemic awareness and just phonics in general is extremely important, and that's what makes a good reader. So what do I do with a struggling reader that appears in my classroom? Do I go back to teach them that? I do work with a lot of English language learners. I always have my 9 years of teaching, so that's also my biggest concern. I read a study that Jill Fitzgerald did on a first grade classroom. I mean, she studied first graders. They gave them tests to see before and after, at the beginning of first grade, at the end of first grade. They were testing if their reading level grew any differently, if they were at a different pace. They even tested to see if their phonemic awareness grew at the same pace. And after that study, they realized that the students, when it came to phonics, actually grew at exactly the same pace. They were at the same reading level by the end of first grade. There was no significant difference between the native English speakers and the English language learners, which tells me that the students at that age level really can learn exactly at the same pace that a native English language speaker learns. So I know they can. My concern is what happens at the secondary level when the students are already a lot older and they already have bigger gaps. How do we handle those phonemic gaps? Can we just move on past that and just work on comprehension? Vocabulary is huge for us at the secondary level. There's two strategies, and I'm in the process of trying to figure out if one is better than the other, or if there is one that's better than the other. But my campus really pushes for Marzano's to teach vocabulary using the Marzano strategy, or using just a Freyer model and introducing the students and working through vocabulary. The book did mention at some point towards the end of those chapters that were speaking about vocabulary that if had to decide what should we target most, then content vocabulary is what we should probably spend a little bit more time on or focus a little bit more on, which is what we have been doing. My concern is just how do we work with this vocabulary? I'm focusing on Marzano's and the Freyer model just because those are two strategies that my campus is currently asking us to use. So I'm trying to figure out which one, if either of those is better than the other. So if anybody out there has a suggestion on which of those would be better, or is one better than the other? Maybe they're just exactly the same, they produce exactly the same effects, but I'm still in the process of doing a little bit of research and trying to figure out which one would be better for our type of students. Fluency and comprehension, big deal for us, probably not as much as the primary levels. Fluency for us really is just targeted through silent sustained reading. We make sure the students are reading at their level, that they are selecting texts that are at their level, or if they are a little bit above their level, then we provide for them audio books so that they can actually listen to a fluent reader and in hopes build also their fluency. Again, I go back to the fact that I have a lot of English language learners. So I paid attention to that and probably the most interesting part from everything that I read was how in the book they were mentioning, in the text they were mentioning that those 1 minute fluency probes are probably not the best way to figure out where your students really are. So definitely reconsider how we're doing that part, and checking, considering other options on how to test the fluency level for our students. But unfortunately, a lot of our students do come lacking in that area. Um, I teach at a campus where a lot of our students are GPC'd into the grade level that they are currently at. So that already tells us they're coming with gaps. This is where the comprehension piece comes, and also the study that we did for Dr. Chase literacy and leadership class comes in. He asked us to find a strategy that we would be willing to implement in our classrooms, and for us to gather data before and after the implementation. So another student of mine who also works at the district level for the English department asked if I would be willing to implement a shared reading strategy that she had seen, which we did, of course, tweaked it so that it would fit at a middle school level and that it would fit the students that I have in my classroom. So in short, it was a shared reading strategy. We selected a really small passage, and by that I mean just like a paragraph-sized passage that was read the same way for 4 days in a row, and the students were given a specific question, different question every day. So the first day we just gave them a question that would test their comprehension of the passage. The second day we were giving them a question that was testing vocabulary or targeting vocabulary that was on there. The third day was either targeting a specific TEK that we wanted to cover through that passage, or a question that was testing their inferencing ability through that passage. And the fourth day they had to actually create something from that passage. We got amazing results. We were only able to do the study for 4.5 weeks. 4 weeks is what we were able to do. We did have a treatment group and a control group, and our treatment group grew in comprehension so much in a very short period of time. We were very excited. That also brought a lot of questions into my mind. What is it about this strategy that gave us such good results? Was it because we were reading the same passage and the students were, which goes back to fluency and them seeing the same passage over and over again, and comprehension, because we were reading the same passage. The first day I would read it. After that, one of the students would read it out loud, and every day was a different student. Were they really comprehending the passage because they saw the same passage over and over again for 4 different days? Vocabulary grew also enormously, and this is only by a personal reflection because we did not test in our test for vocabulary. We only tested for comprehension. But because every question was followed by a sentence stem, a specific way that we wanted the students to answer, and there was certain vocabulary that was used in those sentence stems. So the first 2 weeks, the students were just going by the sentence stem, using words that they wouldn't normally use, but answering in complete sentences and using the vocabulary that we wanted them to use. After the first 2 weeks, the students were completely answering in complete sentences on their own, and not just during the shared reading, but just in general. Every time that I would direct a question to one of my students, they would always respond in a complete sentence, which was amazing for middle school, especially at the campus where I'm teaching. And they were using the terminology that I wanted them to use. They were using words like, well, I can infer that the author is doing this, or I can conclude by reading this passage that the reader is going to learn. I mean, just craziness, crazy sentences that were coming from the students. And more than anything, our numbers really showed that their comprehension grew in a very short period of time. We are hoping to recreate the study so that we can only not test for comprehension, but test their vocabulary also. What kind of results will we get if we implement this strategy for even a longer period of time and not just 4 weeks? Very exciting. But our results were significant enough to where we're actually now sharing it with our curriculum team, and they will be putting this as part of our curriculum so that other teachers can implement their strategy also at the middle school level. Very excited about it and very excited to recreate the study and see what kind of results we get. I share this because after everything I read, and all these different chapters that we had to read, and how do we work on all these different things, I really felt like this strategy that we used as a result of an assignment for Dr. Chase. Thank you, by the way, Dr. Chase. We really saw comprehension growing in our students. I really do believe their vocabulary also got better, and I would really like to see the study when it is recreated with a more control group, a bigger control group and a bigger treatment group to see what other aspects in the students actually grow. So I hope this gave you something to think about, something to consider while you guys are having your discussion. And I will see you guys on Wednesday.